Hello! Today we will be talking about purpose clauses. So, this topic is actually what it sounds like. They're clauses that show purpose. So let me show you what they look like in English. I made this video so that you might understand this concept. So let's break down my sentence that I have here. I have two thoughts here. I made this video, one clause, and so that you might understand this concept, being a second clause. You can tell that they're clauses because I have two different thoughts, both of them having a subject and a verb. We have the you and might understand as a verb set, and then I and made as a subject and verb set. So let's look grammatically what's happening here. I made this video. If we think about this, this is a factual statement. It is something that I completed in the past. So this is a fact. And then let's look at the other side, so that you might understand this concept. Well, that's not really like a fact, it's more of a wish or a sort of hypothetical situation. Just because I made this video doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to become a master at purpose clauses, although that is my desire for you. You may have the opportunity to not understand, or you might become a master of it. This is just my desire. But more specifically, more than my desire, which the word might encourages a sort of desire, this is showing you why I made the video. I made this video so that you might understand this concept. This is my purpose. I can even change out the words so that to say, I made this video for the purpose that you might understand this concept. That is the reason I made this video. So this long part right here, my little purpose, my hypothetical, my desire for you, this whole thing is my purpose clause. And let's see what they look like in Latin. We're going back to my old reliable word in Latin, crustula, meaning cookies. So let's look at this 5-word sentence. Crustula feci ut ea consumerem. Well, let's look at what we can see. We have two verbs. We have feci, which is indicative. We also know it's in the perfect tense. It is first person, meaning my subject is I. It is singular, also meaning my subject is I. And it is active. What else do we see? I have another verb over here, consumerem. I can also see that it is first person because of the M. It is singular. It is consumerem. I see this infinitive in here, so this is imperfect. It's active, and it's subjunctive. All right, what else do we have? I have two direct objects. So we have an accusative plural here and an accusative plural here. Because I have these two independent thoughts, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to do it right here, right where it's safe. So let's take a look at the sentence. Feci, I made crustula, cookies. And then, if you're in my class, you don't have right now the word ut as a vocabulary word, and it translates as to so that. And then, let's take a look at this. I have this imperfect subjunctive and another word for like those things previously mentioned. This is right here, your whole purpose clause. Your purpose clause in Latin is going to start with the so that, letting you know that I'm introducing a purpose for why I made cookies. And you're going to have a word in the subjunctive. Right now in my class, we're going to only see the imperfect subjunctive. And when we do that, we're going to translate it using the word might, sort of having a sort of wish or hypothetical here. I made cookies so that I might consumerem, eat them. So when we look at my statement, I can tell that the factual thing that happened is I made cookies. That happened. But my purpose for that is so that I might eat them. And this is actually the first time we actually see the subjunctive using what it's supposed to be, a sort of hypothetical. Just because I made the cookies for the purpose of me eating them, doesn't mean that someone might come and take them away, or all of my students come to school and they just eat all my cookies. But what the purpose is for me to eat them. So let's see if that's just a one-time thing or if this is a pattern that arises. So let's look at this next sentence. We have whenerunt, which I can tell is third person, plural, perfect, comes ERUNT, active, and it's indicative. And we have over here another verb, which is third person, plural. I have an imperfect, active, subjunctive. So because I have these two little clauses here, I'm just going to draw a line separating them. We know that from our last one that we have seen that ut translates as so that, and it commonly introduces a purpose clause. So I'm just going to mark it off as it is one, and we'll just see if it works out that way. I'm going to put it at the end of my little subjunctive verb. So let's look at our first little clause or statement here. The Felis, the cats, whenerunt, came to school. Now, we have seen from our last sentence that ut tends to introduce a purpose clause, and then there's a verb in the subjunctive. So let's translate it as such. The cats came to school so that, then they, because it ends with an NT, and when we translate a purpose clause from the imperfect subjunctive, you're going to use the word might. You don't tend to translate it as a normal imperfect, like was something. You just use the word might to show the imperfect. And as a subjunctive, it just sort of serves a little hypothetical. So might is the word that you're going to use in a purpose clause in the imperfect. So the cats came to school so that they might, what are they going to do? Take my cookies. Oh, that's so rude. So that is our idea here. You have your main clause right here. The cats came to school, and this is their purpose. So let's take a look at these two sentences together, see if we can see any patterns. We can see in these two sentences, we have a sort of main clause that comes first. We got, the I made cookies and the cats came to school. I see an ut, and I see a verb in the subjunctive. Let's see if those are the rules for the purpose clause. So to have a purpose clause, you're going to have some sort of main clause. You're going to have the word ut. You'll see right here, I have the word uti right here. Now, uti with an I is an alternate form. You won't see that in our little Latin textbooks, but if you're translating Caesar, you'll probably see him use uti instead of just ut. So it's just important to be aware of. And then you're going to see a subjunctive verb. Just like we've seen them in cum clauses and indirect question, you will now see a subjunctive verb used in a purpose clause. Now, this subjunctive verb is either going to be in the present or the imperfect tense. In my class right now, we don't know the present tense, so it's all going to be in the imperfect for right now. And they're going to be translated differently based on whether you're using the present or the imperfect, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But these three things, the main clause, the ut, and the subjunctive verb, are all the recipe for a purpose clause. So as I was saying, that you're going to translate a purpose clause a little bit differently based whether your subjunctive is in the imperfect or the present. Again, if you're in my class right now, you don't know the present subjunctive, so you just only need to work on the word might. The imperfect subjunctive will translate to might in a purpose clause. Now, if you have a present subjunctive, you will translate it as may. Now, this is going to cause a lot of headaches because I know in your head that you always want to use may, but you need to get into good form. Imperfect subjunctive is might, present subjunctive is may. So I would not try and jump across and use them incorrectly. It'll make a lot of Latin teachers mad. So let's try and translate one final purpose clause. So what do we know? We know that this ut is going to introduce a purpose clause, and it's going to end with an subjunctive. So I see caperit, so I'm going to go, phew, found a purpose clause. So my main clause should be vir meum velum intraret. Oh, good. There's a nice verb here. So what do we know? A man entered my house. And then we have ut, which translates to so that, and which is introducing our purpose clause. So that, compare it. He might, because it's imperfect, he might take my cookies. Seems like everyone's purpose is to steal my cookies. I see a trend here. So let's review what we learned today. The first thing we learned today is that purpose clauses show the purpose of an action. We've learned that they were made using an ut and a verb in the subjunctive. And we've learned that the subjunctive can be translated with either might, if it is in the imperfect tense, or may, if it is in the present tense. So by now, you should be masters of purpose clauses. Let's see how we can do them in practice.